All right, so I've been asked to share the story of Earnest Pitch, and it's in relationship to our band, which is called the Ghost of Earnest Pitch. And so we kind of built the name of the band around this sort of folk tale, historical figure, and I'll just share the story as it's been handed down to me, and I'll do the best I can. So Earnest Pitch was in the military in the 1850, around 1850, and he was an officer in the military. And at that time, he was a really sort of moral, really decent, good man, and he became disillusioned with military life. And I don't know how widespread his experience was. This is just how it was shared with me, that there was a ton of debauchery, drunkenness, sexual liaisons, and he felt like it was just a sort of a morally bankrupt military. I don't think that he was behind what they were doing with rooting out Native Americans and hunting them down. And so he just one day just decided to desert, and he deserted the army. And he had met a woman named Rachel, who he felt deeply in love with. And they established squatters' rights and started a farm together. And they grew, corn and barley and wheat, I think wheat. And so they were deeply in love. They were married. They had not yet started a family. And one of the things that they loved to do is she loved to sing. And he could play banjo and violin. And so they loved to spend their nights in the trees with him playing the banjo or violin and her singing. And there was just something about their music. There was something about their presence when they were doing it. They had some strange sort of coincidences or synchronicities where, wild animals would come and get unusually close and listen to them play. And they sort of had dreams of maybe through music touching people's lives. I mean, this was way back in the day. They weren't looking to be rock stars. But, back then you had community musicians. They served a role. There was a town musician or a number of town musicians, and people got together and played music. And it was, this is before the internet and television. This was a big part of communal life. And they thought, gosh, maybe we have something here. They thought there was maybe just a hint of inspiration in what they were doing. And so they had sort of, hopes and dreams to heal with music, to bring music to people in a way that was healing. And good. And I think that that's kind of what music is for. And that's kind of what we're doing. And so they're deeply in love. They've established squatters' rights. They're on the way to this thing they're doing. And Rachel becomes ill, and it's consumption. And she becomes bedridden, and Ernest is devastated. I mean, this is his whole life. He's never felt like this about a woman in his life. He loves her so profoundly and deeply, and she's ill. And I don't know how religious he was, but he's praying. He's praying for her to get well, and something about what happened while they were playing music together, the sort of power they felt sometimes, made him think that if he could just play, he gets obsessed with healing Rachel. The thing that would bring her comfort is he would play violin for her, and sometimes banjo, and even in her sickness, it would bring her real comfort. And so he thought, maybe if I could just find the sound, the sound that would heal. So he's praying, and he's trying to find perfectly sincere, holy or spiritual or something sound, and maybe it'll heal his wife. And he's really working for this, and he's staying up, and he's not sleeping well, and he's maybe a little obsessed. I would say he's obsessed at this point. And, who wouldn't be if he thought maybe he could heal his wife? And he thinks maybe he could find this sound, this power in sound, in sincerity, that would heal this woman, his wife, Rachel. And, maybe he thinks he's found it. Maybe he thinks he's going to find it. And then she dies. And he loses her. And before she passed, she made him swear that he would tend the farm and follow through with their dreams and live. And he promised her he would do that. And he tries. He really tries. I think he made it a season. Maybe made it almost a full season. But one day, one of the neighbors, these are not cul-de-sacs here, but one of the neighbors saw him heading off into the forest. And he had his a little rucksack and a banjo and a violin, and he heads off into the forest, and he never returns. He never returns to the farm. The farm is gone. It's over. Eventually becomes dilapidated. And it's not long after that they find a dead body face down in a river. It's below a log. So it looks like someone is trying to cross this log. And it's a mossy log. They're trying to cross the river, but it's up. It's 20 or 30 feet above the river. And it looks like someone was trying to cross that, and they slipped and fell. And they land face down in the river. It's not deep, so the water's not going to break this person's fall. And it looks like maybe the person was either killed by the impact, or else was knocked unconscious and drowns. There's not enough water to wash the body away, but it's he's semi-submerged. And when they finally find this body, I don't know how good forensics were back then. I don't know how long he was in the water, but he's all swollen up. And so they can't positively identify who this is. And some of the folks say the clothes he's wearing look a lot like Earnest Pitch's clothing. But there's no banjo and there's no violin, so they're not sure. So no one knows really if that's Earnest Pitch or not. But but Earnest Pitch nevertheless never returns. And that's kind of the end of what we know for sure about Earnest Pitch, is that he wandered off into the forest and maybe fell to his death. But he was never seen again alive, ever again. And that's it. That's the story of Earnest Pitch. But what happens after is what inspires the band. We feel like, in a way, we sort of have a connection with Earnest Pitch. And so what happens is these stories begin to emerge around Appalachia of this spectral figure that haunts the forests at night, and usually has a subtle green glow about this figure. And hikers or travelers often come across or see or have an experience with this spectral figure. It's never really direct. A lot of times what it is they hear a violin or a banjo playing. A lot of times at night, it's a little creepy. Sometimes someone's camped out and they start hearing this music and they try to find it and they can't find it, or if they do, they come across this spectral figure way out in the trees, subtle green glow with music coming off, but the music doesn't sound quite like real. It's like if we put effects on it in the modern age, to make it sound ethereal or something. It's just not quite right. And the other thing too is no one ever really gets right up on him very often. It's not like they can get right to it. And if in later years, if someone does, it's a freaking ghost is what it's a ghost. But one of the stories that's worth sharing is relatively recently after this disappearance and maybe death of Earnest Pitch is there's a whiteout. And a younger girl, about 9 years old, wanders out into this whiteout and is lost. And the parents realize their daughter's missing, and they go out to find her. And, it's snowing so much the tracks you could see them, but then as you follow them, they disappear. So they're going out to their immediate neighbors, and everyone is, how dangerous this is. Everyone's out trying to find this girl, and they can't find her. And it's a couple hours, 2-3 hours later when she turns up on somebody's porch. And, they all know each other. Everyone knows everyone else. They know whose daughter it is. And so eventually there's a discussion about what happened. And they asked this girl, what happened to you? And she says, I think she was going to an outhouse or something. She says, I went out into the forest and I got lost and I could not find my home. And I was just wandering and terrified, obviously, 9 years old, but back then 9 years old was more mature than our 9 years old, but nevertheless terrified. And so she says that she starts to hear the sound of a violin. And she moves towards it. And this violin leads her. She feels like she's being led. She gets closer and then it's further away. And she gets closer and then it's further away. And she's making her way through the snow and it's freezing cold. But it eventually leads her to where she can see a lantern porch light burning. Because people obviously, as soon as they know that this girl's missing, they're lighting their lanterns and they're putting out lights and they're dinging bells and yelling for her. And she sees this porch light burning and gets led to safety. And and that's the kind of thing that starts to happen after the disappearance of Earnest Pitch in this saga of stories. And there's tons more. There's all kinds of stuff like this that happens. And a lot of times it's not so dramatic where someone's going to die, but it's a person out spending the night in the woods and they hear music. And our band feels like some of the songs that we have, that we play, it seems every once in a while, it seems like we experience the presence of Earnest Pitch directly in the room. It's a little spooky, but not in a bad way. And some songs, our band is kind of improvisational. We put a really high level of, I don't know what the word is. It's not faith. We believe in synchronicity and chance, and we believe in an order that kind of comes out of chaos. And so, for the first many years of our band's existence, we just played music from scratch. We just got together, started to noodle around and see what would emerge. And we've had some amazing hour and a half, just epic musical unfoldments that have happened this way. And we really learned, some of us, not me, but some of the band members were musicians when we started, but a few of us didn't even know how to play our instrument. We just learned how to play by doing this. And we've had some nights where a power comes in the room, a melody drops in, a mood, and a whole song, lyrics and all, has come through. And those nights they have this quality to them, which we have come to associate with Earnest Pitch. It's what we think it is. So the band name is Ghost of Earnest Pitch. And it's kind of a play on words. It's like, on the one hand, you're just saying that you think Earnest Pitch died in that river, and has we even have a song called "The Partial Resurrection of Earnest Pitch." It's my personal favorite. It's built off of, it's like our contribution to the folk genre, and there's a folk song called "The Dreadful Wind and Rain," and I call it Two Sisters, but it's really called Dreadful Wind and Rain. It's a folk song. And we've built onto that an addition. So it starts with Dreadful Wind and Rain, and then it goes into the partial resurrection of Earnest Pitch, where Earnest Pitch finds the violin made out of that maiden's bones and hair. And it becomes a magical item of power for him that moves him along in his journey. So anyway, we feel like we've received a bunch of songs from Earnest Pitch. So on the one hand, the band is named Ghost of Earnest Pitch because it's the ghost of Earnest Pitch. Simple as straightforward. But another way of thinking about it is Earnest Pitch is maybe another way of saying sincere sound, maybe. And so we also think of it as the ghost of Earnest Pitch is another way of saying that it's like code for just a hint of sincere sound. The same sound Ernest was trying to find when he was trying to heal his wife is the same sound we're trying to find to bring to people. And sometimes I think we find it, just a hint of it. So the ghost of Earnest Pitch. So that's the story of Earnest Pitch. There's tons more. There's all kinds of folklore around him. A lot of musicians hear a song and take it. That's what we've done. They hear a song out in the forest, or it's Earnest Pitch doing it, and they take it. And we've sure done that. We have a song called "She Walks Alone," about a woman who's out on a highway in the desert. We don't say how she got there. It looks like she ditched someone or something and is now walking alone in the desert. She's had a really rough life, nothing but trouble. And there's a car getting ready to come up over the hill, coming towards her. She doesn't know it. I don't think she knows. I think one of the band members thinks she knows it's her doom. I think she doesn't know, but it doesn't matter. There's a car coming up over the hill, and it's filled with men who will do her harm out in the desert. And it's be just another in a long list of tragedies for her. And but she sees this subtle green hue out on the ridge, and I think she's just thinking, if I just walk down this road, it's the same thing I've always done, and it's going to be the same thing. And she's right. Only I think she doesn't know it's going to be her death. But some of the band members, I think, feel like she kind of knew somehow. But either way, she's got a choice to make. There's like a trail leading off into the hills, sagebrush and juniper tree hills, This is out west now. And it's not back east. And she's like, do I keep going down the road I've gone down and keep getting the results I've always gotten, the same life I've always gotten, or do I head off into something new? And she sees this subtle green hue, and it is not natural. And she just, without even thinking about it, she just goes off the highway out down this dusty dirt trail. And she follows this green hue until she gets to this secret place out in the desert. The lyric says a secret place that the desert made. And it's, you come upon these places if you wander. If you're on trails, it's not the same, but out west, there's all kinds of open land where you can walk off trail, and it's not against the rules, and you can just wander. And there's some neat things you find. You can find, seen plenty out in Moab before it was really popular, and out here in the West, there's just a lot of places that they're kind of sacred. There's these secret places that maybe no one's been to before. And they just hold that sort of quality about them. There's something about them that's, I don't know, it's set apart. And she comes across a place like that, and there is a figure, a spectral figure, glowing green, and she sees him, and she eventually sits in front of him, and their eyes meet. And she has this encounter with Earnest Pitch, and he has this encounter with her. And they both emerge from this chance meeting in a sacred place that the desert made different. They emerged different and changed. And it's an evolution in Earnest Pitch's sort of character arc and psychological transformation. And it changes this woman's life. She's never the same again. And she leaves her old life because of it. Something changes in her. She has a spiritual awakening from this encounter with Earnest Pitch. And so that is sort of a good, I guess that's good enough. There's a ton of other stories, with Earnest Pitch and, ones we probably don't know anything about. But that's the story of Earnest Pitch. And that's the foundation of the name of our band. And that's kind of what we're up to. We're just trying to, we don't want to be like famous or anything. There's a musician from DC. If you ever heard of him, it's Chuck Brown. You had to look him up. And he was kind of a local thing, like a local legend. He never got huge, but he really touched a lot of people's lives. He had this light. He brought light through his music. And it was joyous, real joyous. And we bring some joy, our band, but we're also bring some other things. But there are some musicians that just bring light to people. They use that medium of art, of music, to help people. And our band is, we don't know if we'll do well at it, but that's what we're trying to do. We hope that when people come, they leave better off than when they came. And we think music can do that. We think music holds a power and can hold a power. And we think we have a muse helping us do it, and that's Earnest Pitch. And maybe some Rachel too. Some Rachel, his wife. I want to say one more thing about that Earnest Pitch Rachel thing. So she dies, right? And here's what I think ultimately happened. I think he died. I think that's his body. Some of the band members don't think that it was him. They think otherwise, whatever. I think he died in that river, but I don't think he died all the way. I think his obsession for Rachel, I think that he wandered off and couldn't take it without her. And I think in a half crazed sort of way, he was going to find her. And I think he died, but I don't think he went to heaven. I don't think he left this dimension. I think that he's a spectral figure, obsessed over Rachel. And there are some stories where he encounters her, and it's like his perception of it is that she's somehow bound or trapped spiritually, and he's got to save her. And I think a big part of some of the stories I've heard concerning this dimension of it is that he thinks she's in spiritual danger, and he's driven, just obsessed really, in finding her and helping her. But to me, it looks like she's not in any kind of spiritual bondage. It looks to me like she is free. And he's so lost now. We have a song about it, like it's wrong, but then it's kind of right. It's like he's lost, but then he's found something. He's on his own journey. In the end, he helps so many people. In the end, it's good, but it's tragedy too, because he should have just moved on to the light or something, or lived. But he didn't. It's a tragedy. His obsession for her is tragic. And through those eyes, those blind eyes that can't see, he thinks she's the one. It's like he's projecting. He thinks she's in bondage. He thinks that she's in spiritual bondage. She is trapped, and he perceives it that way. There are sometimes that he perceives entities around her that he thinks are holding her back. But, it's like there's a Buddhist sort of saying that the angels that guard the gates of heaven appear as demons until you're free. And then they look like angels inviting you in, and it's all your perception. And I feel like he does that with these. I think they're freaking angels of light, or whatever you call it, whatever that is. They're beings of light around her, and I think she's beckoning him into heaven, but he can't perceive it, so he sees her as in bondage, possibly trapped by beings. And so a big part of his story of what happened to him is he's trying to free her from suffering. But I think he's the one in suffering. That's what I think. I think she's freeing him. I think that she is a beacon of light, and her skin is like as black as night. Her skin is like black as night, but she's radiating this light. I think she's a being of light. Just a human, not an angel or something. I think she's a human, but she went to the light, man. She's in love. And I think he's the one trapped because of his obsession. That's got him doomed to haunt in the freaking trees, man, alone. And I think that his encounters with her are really invitations into the light. And I think he'll eventually figure that out. And it'll be through the grace of this woman that gets it, and he doesn't get it. And it's such a tragedy that he doesn't see it. And he thinks he's trying to free her, and he kind of died in a way when she died. And he lost his way. But also, all of these stories that come in of him helping others happen only because he did. So that's the story of Earnest Pitch, as much as I can say in this video, and thanks everyone.